Welcome to the Bike Talk with Dave podcast. I'm your host, Dave Mabel, and I'm so glad you decided to spend some time with us. And I sure hope you come back. We've got some awesome episodes coming on up with none other than world mountain bike short track champ Christopher Blevins and the founder of Levi's Grand Fondo, and he did race bikes for a bit, Levi Leipheimer. Plus, I've gotten some great suggestions that I'll be hunting down over the coming weeks, so keep them coming. This week, we've got some alumni of the show, Justin McQuerry, who's got some exciting news right after we recorded the show that he was accepted into the Lifetime Grand Prix, which is super fun. Be anxious to watch him throughout the whole summer in that. Plus, we are also joined by Chris Mehlman. I met both of them last year at the Rattlesnake Gravel Grind, and I think we all took a snake around the neck, which we might have another bet this year. But anyway, we're excited to talk about the Rattlesnake Gravel Grind in our conversation here, but I've also had them each on their own episodes. Chris was on episode number 138, and Justin was on both number 113 and number 112 with Joe Laverick, talking about the Rattlesnake Gravel Grind. Joe was last year's winner of last year's Rattlesnake race. Justin, I think, won the year before that. Anyway, you should go back and listen to those. They're helpful, entertaining, fun, all that good stuff. So, what are they doing back on here today? Well, as we head into full whack gravel season, I thought it would be helpful to talk to a couple of gravel and off-road pros about how they prepare for long, difficult races, how they fuel their bodies both during training and racing, and of course, a hot topic, tire choices for gravel. We dive deep into that. So I hope you get something out of this conversation and just plain enjoy it. These are two great guys who I'm looking forward to seeing next weekend in Sweetwater, Texas. So let's jump right in with Justin McQuerry and Chris Mehlman. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Bike Talk with Dave. It's good to see you two again. I'm talking with Justin McQuerry and Chris Mehlman, who you guys have both been on your own episode. And I will say in the intro what episodes they were because I don't remember off the top of my head. But and then we also met last year at the Rattlesnake Gravel Grind, where we're going to see you guys again in, I don't know, about a month. I'm super excited to see that. So welcome back to Bike Talk with Dave, you guys.
Thanks for having us on again, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Rattlesnake Gravel Grind, I want to talk a little bit about that, but I also want to talk about what you guys do to get ready for something like, what is your distance? You're like 105 miles or something at Rattlesnake?
Somewhere over 100.
What do you do to get ready for that? I want to talk about what you eat, not just during the race, but during training. And then I'm super curious. People always geek out on equipment. So I want to ask you what you're riding. And Justin, I think you're on a new bike this year, aren't you?
Yes, sir, I am. Yeah, I'm very, very happy to be racing on state bicycles this year, and I'm actually currently on at the time of recording this, a yet to be released update to their Carbon All Road. It's got bigger tire clearance, fully internal cable routing, UDH, so we're doing gravel
Oh,
properly all around, and it's been a pleasure working with the folks at State so far and getting this bike built up and just riding around the last couple of days. Actually hopped in a race day two on this bike in a road race here, so it's jumping in the deep end right out of the gate, and it's working well. Very excited to get onto some gravel with this guy soon.
huh, sweet. You did a road race on it?
I did, yeah. I rode
Huh.
1 hour the day after I built it on Friday, and then hopped in a 80-mile road race on Saturday, just to see what was going to fall off and how the bike was actually going to ride under some real pressure. And thankfully, I was the only thing that was falling apart.
Good. I mean, good.
Yeah,
Not good that you're falling apart, but
yeah, true. Not
good
not
that the
not
bike held
really falling.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, not
Uh,
really falling apart, but first hard effort of the year.
so UDH, did you stand on the derailleur?
Uh, I'm gonna leave that for the videos. As much as I know it's gonna hold up, I don't really want to test that. But it is
Not on
nice to
your
have.
own.
Yeah, Not on
Yeah,
my own bike for sure.
yeah. I did see it actually in person in Austin at I think it was at Mellow Johnny's. They had
Nice.
a kind of a SRAM. What is it? The Axis? What's
Transmission.
the transmission release? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I saw it, but freaking dude stood on a derailleur, and I cried the whole time, but it held up.
It's painful to watch, but it's cool to see that it's actually there to do its job.
Yep, yep, for sure. And Chris, this probably isn't the bike you're going to ride gravel snake or rattlesnake on, but you just got a new bike too. What'd you get?
Yeah, so I'm racing for Pivot this year for the second year, although I've been riding the bikes a little bit longer than that. I just got my new Mach 4SL mountain bike, so that's full suspension, like 120 mil up front, 115 in the rear, and I have it with flight attendant. So super excited about that. Right now it's a frame in a stand, 'cause, so I have to finish building that up. But yeah, I'll be racing Rattlesnake on my Pivot Vault. So that's actually also a pretty new bike. They released that last September, like middle of September. Yeah, like increased tire clearance. It's a lot more progressive, kind of slacker, super comfy, and yeah, has internal frame storage and stuff. So yeah, be my actually only my well third race on it because I raced Big Sugar, just a local race here in February, and then or fourth race, and then because I'm Mid South, and then Rattlesnake. So
Awesome. And you mentioned the word here, and for you, and this is kind of fun. I got to geek out for a hot minute. Chris, you are in Colorado Springs,
yep,
and Justin, you are in Austin.
Yes, sir.
I have a son who lives in Austin, and I have a son who lives in Colorado Springs. And this
That's
is
cool.
I got to brag for a minute here because it just happened. But did you see the news that we landed a thing on the moon this weekend?
We did. That's
I didn't
that
see
that went
that.
right over my head,
You guys got to pay
literally and
I
attention to
saw
figuratively.
stuff.
a
Come on.
lot of other news this weekend, but that was not something I
Fair
saw.
enough. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, the very first successful commercial lunar landing happened this weekend, and it was the lunar lander was built by a company called Firefly, which is in Austin, Texas, Cedar
Yep.
Park,
Yep.
and both of my kids worked there as the thing was being designed and built, and
That's
both of
cool.
their names are on a plaque that is on that lander that is sitting on the moon.
That
That's
is
that's very
that's
cool.
Isn't
that's
that freaking
proper rad.
awesome? Yeah,
That's
It's
yeah,
freaking
very,
awesome.
very,
yeah.
very cool.
There's my little brag for the day. But anyway, I think it's fun that you guys are both calling from where my two of my kids live, and I don't know. I'll look forward to seeing you guys. Well, I guess I'll see you in Sweetwater.
Yeah, we'll see you in a few weeks.
Yeah, yep. So let's talk about Rattlesnake Gravel Grind. I'm curious what brings you guys back. Chris, I feel like this is your second year,
Yep,
and
second year.
Justin, third or fourth?
Year four for
Year
me.
four. Year four.
Yep.
What keeps you guys coming back? And Chris, I'm going to ask you first since this is your second round, and then Justin. But Chris, why are you coming back this year?
It's just such a great atmosphere. I mean, I love the really, really big events. They're fun, great competition and stuff. But I think I know people talk about the spirit of gravel, but really just like the atmosphere that I like the most is at these smaller events, and I'd say Rattlesnake has probably the best out there. It's not just a race; it's not even just a weekend. It's like 4 days of food, fun. Just the whole community comes out and supports it. Um, the course is fun. It's super safe. They have marshals at every corner, even though, let's be honest, I mean, I'm pretty sure some of those corners haven't seen the car, hadn't seen the car in probably the 36 hours before that, but still have marshals there just in case. And it's just a great time. People are really friendly. Yeah, and so it's just a good way to kind of start the season, and it dovetails well with Mid South being a week after. So yeah, just really enjoyed the atmosphere, and I convinced my mom to come down this year because she heard about the atmosphere, and yeah, wanted to see what it was all about. So
That's awesome. I love that. And your mom's racing, right?
yeah, so she's doing, I guess it either the 30 or the 70. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, she's had unfortunately some health challenges in the last few months. But still planning on coming down and yeah, and doing one of those. So. Gonna
Cool.
be
I'll be
exciting.
excited to meet her. It'd be kind of fun. Dee and I are doing the 70 miler, and it'd be super fun to ride with your mom.
Yeah.
I,
Yep.
I don't know if we're the same pace or not, but it'd be super cool. Justin, what keeps you coming back? 4 years in a row. I think that's awesome.
4 years in a row, yeah, and I'm as excited. I would say I'm even more excited to come back for year four than I have been the prior three. As Chris said, the atmosphere is there's nothing that can compare to it. The promoter of Rattlesnake, David King, I'd say doing a good job is underselling it. He brings the entire community of Sweetwater out to help put on, organize, promote, run this event, and everyone in the community is more than welcoming, and makes everyone feel like they're there to have a good time, have a great event, and enjoy themselves and enjoy their time on the bike, which it's hard to say about a lot of bike races. And when you're traveling, going out to events, and regardless of how big or small they are, if you meet anyone along the way that's a little less stoked that you're coming to their area to go ride or race your bike, it dampens the amount of enjoyment you can get out of an event, and that is not something that has happened in the prior 3 years I've been in Sweetwater, and I don't foresee it ever happening with the way David does runs Rattlesnake. On top of that, super fun, unique, dynamic courses, and they kind of suit a wide variety of skill sets, strength suits or strengths on the bike. So regardless of what type of rider you are, you're going to find some place on the race where you're going to have fun. You're going to find some place on the race where you're going to be challenged a little bit. And for the racing side, that creates one of the most dynamic races on the calendar, which I find super, super fun. And I gotta try and win this thing again. So that's a little more fuel for the fire for me.
Do we do a snake bet again?
I don't know if I want to do a snake bet again, but I will take that. I'll bet both Chris and Joe a snake around the neck, or at least the first one to get a snake around the neck for whoever's
It's
on the top step.
well,
Are
it's
you?
less scary this time though. I think last time was yeah, that was a scary moment. Now it's
True.
like
Yeah.
okay, I think I feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah. We might have to kiss the snake this year.
Ooh,
Ooh.
dude, that's
Ooh.
a whole nother level. Uh, I did bet David King. He's a Texas Tech fan, and I bet him on the Texas Tech Iowa State football game, and that was one of the two we lost. So
Oh,
I gotta wear a snake this year.
I know. It sounds like Dave's gonna be the first one with the snake around his neck then.
I don't know about first, but I'll, I'll see if you guys live, and then maybe take that on.
Fair, fair,
Uh,
fair enough.
the course is awesome and super dynamic. One thing that's unique about it is the ranches. You know, I live in Iowa and we've got miles and miles and miles of gravel roads, but I mean, they're just gravel roads. Um, Around Sweetwater, the course that he set up, like we'll be on a gravel road for a little bit and then we'll dive into, I mean, double track and almost single track. And we're going through somebody's ranch and, you just go through a gate and then follow your computer head, and
Yep.
if it says go left, you go left. But super dynamic and interesting, and it can be rocky, it can be dry, and dirt. It can be all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and there can be water crossings too. The first year I did it, we had a bit of rain right before, and a couple of the rivers were not totally dry. So depending on the weather and the week leading up, it can be very different on the same course. And David also likes to change up the course, so it's not getting just done and done and done again. And the course for this year is going to be new to all of us, with some sections that have been ridden in the past, but yeah, looping together all these unique little facets of people's personal ranches that they're opening up for the event is something that you don't get to experience anywhere else.
Yeah, it is super cool. And I don't know if you guys appreciate the scenery as much as we do,
Yeah, we
but
might be looking at the other. I'm looking at Chris, who's looking at Joe, who's looking at me, and the rest of the people up in our league group. So we might not be looking at that quite as much on race day.
probably not. But going through, like, there's this giant ridge with, I don't know, 1,000 wind turbines, and
Okay.
I think it's super cool riding through there. I don't know if you guys even
It,
noticed, but it's super
That that
cool riding through
that
that
was
windmill
one
farm.
part that I think we all took a second to take a gander in. It is something special for sure.
yeah, and just the different terrains. Like, I mean, you start and it's kind of rolling, and then you go through some. I mean, there's sections in Branchland which are super sandy, and then you once you get on that wind turbine, it's like this plateau. It's like you're in the Netherlands, like just windy farmland, and you're like, where? Like, I can't believe we just came from. It's like a totally a totally different world with all these kind of rolling hills and seems a lot drier, and then. Yeah, and you drop back down into that kind of ranch land area, and I think that's cool. It also just that's part of what creates the course dynamic is it's not flat, but it's also not mountain passes. It's got kind of a unique combo of flat, really flat areas, and then some pretty steep hills. And honestly, like I think one of my first comments looking at my elevation profile after was like, it almost looks like your GPS unit's broken, like there's a glitch in it because if you see like hills and then this like flat line and then more hills, but I think that that makes for a really unique race dynamic. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And then of course the campground is. I was explaining to somebody today about it, and I'm like, it's as if like Rattlesnake Gravel Grind owns that campground for the weekend, and I say figuratively owns, but you just pull up and you can camp anywhere. There's RV outlets to hook up. He brings an extra shower in, food, beer, music, all weekend long for I don't know, is it like 65 or 75 bucks for
Yeah,
all of that? It's like the best value in gravel ever. It's awesome.
yeah,
I love it. And then they
yeah,
give $30,000 away to the local volunteer fire departments in their area, which is just mind blowing. It's like, how do you do that? I don't get how you do that. But I know that he uses the town gets super excited about it. Sweetwater, I feel like Sweetwater is kind of like where Leadville was 15 years ago. And so the town really embraces like a fun, positive, exciting activity. And the JCs like own this race. And they bring the beer truck in and they do the food and bring it's just unbelievable. It's a great race, great value. So what is it, March 22nd, 3rd?
third,
yeah. I think
I
it's
think.
That whole weekend?
18th. Yeah, 18th through the 23rd.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that
but
whole
again,
weekend. Like you plan the whole weekend.
Yep,
it's not
it
just the
is.
race. There are some races where you show up for the race and then you leave. This one, you want to be there for the whole event. It's
Yep.
so worth it. That's the race is race is amazing, but it's everything else around it and all the people. That's really what makes it just so cool. So
The fact that your mom is coming down from New England to spend the weekend with you and do this ride is awesome. Like that says it all right there.
yeah, I think I sold this pretty hard, and I think she's probably number one decider on whether she goes to an event is it a good event, is it a fun event, is it welcoming, is it a good atmosphere, and in terms of seeing other parts of the country, I don't think there's any better way than through a gravel race like this. So yeah.
Huh,
Yep.
very cool. Very cool. Justin, you bringing your mom?
She is not coming this year. No, I don't know how much of a commute she wants to make, and she currently lives in Europe, so it might be while New England isn't close, Spain's a little bit further away, so I don't know if she'll be making it for this
It's a
year, but
long drive.
it
It's a
it
very long
definitely
drive.
is.
Yeah,
Hey,
for sure.
Joe's coming for Spain, so I mean,
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
He's spending a little more time in the U.S. than my mom would, so
yeah.
we'll see. It's on her list though. This has been one of the few races she's actually talked to me about, just out of the blue. So
Yeah.
we'll see. My fingers are
Well,
crossed for one year.
as a parent with a child in Austin, we make a trip out of it. And so I would encourage your mom to do the same. We go down and
Yeah.
hang out in Austin for the week. Have you done the bike ride around the um, F1 track or the
Around
IndyCar
Coda.
track or whatever?
Um, I have so yes and no. So actually, like when I was first getting into racing as a junior, there was one weekend back in when we had like a little mini tour of Austin where we had one day that was raced around Coda, and I did race on that. Like honestly like 10 years ago at this point. But as in the last couple of years, they have bike nights out at Coda. I think it's on Tuesday nights
Yep.
after the time change. And I haven't done that in the last couple of years, but it is on my list to head out there this year. It's super super cool that they open up to just let people go ride their bikes around. I Austin does a really good job of trying to push for more bike infrastructure, more active outlets, and opening up one of the main or one of the biggest international attractions in Austin to cyclists once a week is awesome to see.
Yeah. Well, we are driving overnight Monday night so we can get there in time to do that ride on Tuesday.
Sweet.
So we will
Well,
be there.
then I might have to head out to that one as
You,
well. It's
you
it's
might
been on
have
my
to head
list,
out.
so yeah,
Yep. And I don't know if you do beer, but we'll probably hit Meanwhile on the way home.
sweet. Well, yeah, sign me up for both then.
All right. Fair enough. Um, all right. Looking forward to seeing you guys in Sweetwater in a couple of weeks. And I am curious what you guys do to get ready for a long gravel ride. I want to talk a little bit about your training, about your nutrition, and then again, geek out on equipment a little bit more, a little more detail. Um, this is a long race, 100 miles in March. Uh, I don't know, like for a lot of people doing one century ride, and for mortals, that's what we call it, doing a century ride. Um, uh, and prepping for it and doing it in August like is a big deal. How do you guys prep and keep in shape over the winter to be ready for 100 miles in March?
Freeze.
Yeah. I
Fair
was gonna say
enough.
Chris. Yeah, I was gonna
Wait,
say
wait, wait.
Chris.
Justin, do
Chris
you
and
live
I
in
come from
Austin?
two. I do live in Austin, so I was gonna say Chris and I's winter training regimen might be a little bit different here.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
burn through bottom brackets and yeah, use bar mitts and stuff like that. No, I mean honestly, like a lot of people ride the trainer. So living in Colorado Springs, I'd say our winters are generally a lot more mild than where I grew up in New England. But this winter has been particularly challenging. We've had a lot of like single digit days, a lot of snow. Um, the one advantage though is that the sun is so strong up here that even if it gets to like 25 degrees, the roads can be snow covered in the morning and then completely dry in the afternoon.
Oh,
So you you just kind of yeah, you just kind of have to factor that in. But for me, I hate riding the trainer, so it's just committing to ride outside. And it is challenging. It takes a while to get dressed, a lot of laundry, a lot of washing your bike when it's below freezing out, which is not fun. A lot of wear and tear on your bike. Um, but it also does make the days like we had the last few days, which were like 60 degrees, absolutely incredible. And those first warm days feel like a nice reward. So
yeah.
yeah, a lot of long miles, and that's kind of the main thing.
Are you riding 5, 6, 7 days a week, even through the winter?
Yeah, so I typically ride like 7 days a week. Usually I have like recovery spins and stuff, and those quite honestly the most challenging in the winter because it's too cold. Recovery spins don't keep you warm. Like you're just not riding hard enough to like maintain your warmth. And so sometimes those are nicer to do on the trainer. So yeah, I try and ride. I'm typically riding like 7 days a week and doing anywhere from like 16 to 28 hours depending on the week.
Wow.
And then a
In the
mix
winter?
of yep, a mix of endurance and and intervals and stuff, and then also I do gym 2 to 3 times per week kind of in the off season. So
Wow, that's a lot of hours.
yeah, but I
Com-
like riding my
com-
bike, so the more the better.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Compare that to July, getting ready for something like Leadville. Same number of hours, or
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I'd say volume is pretty similar. I won't have as many like massive weeks, but a lot of it just depends on the racing. So I say there's less like, okay, perfectly structured build weeks because you have so many races sprinkled in between. But I do a lot of like training races. So like for example, there's one race you can do in Colorado in the winter, at one bike race, and it's called Old Man Winter Rally, and I did that in February, and that was just in place of a workout. And so even in the summer, some smaller races will just be like a have normal training week, and instead of doing a group ride or threshold intervals on Saturday, you do a race. Um, but yeah, it totally, volume fluctuates, but generally I'd say it's, average 20 22 hours per week. So
Hmm, wow. Justin, are you similar?
Yes and no. It's definitely a little less cold in Austin, so getting outside is a little less difficult for me for sure. Winter is kind of a time where I reset. I definitely take a chunk of time to not focus on a bike right after the season, and then try and do all the things that I get to neglect during the year when I'm just focused on racing. And I pick up a few more hours. I actually work at Johnny's as a mechanic now,
Oh, cool.
and do a few other little odd jobs, kind of build up a little bit of cash so that I can spend my time during the race season just focusing on racing and just focusing on training and just focusing on recovery, as you have to be racing and competing at a top level. But training wise, it's like Chris, big weeks. I probably average 20 to 22 hours a week over December, January, February. And I would say I actually backed it off a little bit this past winter. Only averaged like 20 21 hours a week over this winter, with the goal of pushing a little bit harder in March and April and May and being really prepared and really in shape for some of the bigger key races that I have on the calendar later this year. In the past, I've been a really big fan of doing these big, long, big blocks over the winter and being really good in March. But then I always kind of fall flat in April, and May is a bit of a struggle. And then you take your summer break, and it's just hard to get back into it. But this year, having only a gravel calendar and only some really big races on the calendar, I want to be really ready for the goal races and taking it just a little bit easier over the winter and maintaining the freshness that I feel now that I do when I first got back into training in winter back in November, has I think already paid off, and spending the hours and the time that I am on the bike doing only the workouts that I know are good for me. Like zone two rides or zone two. My tempo rides have proper tempo intervals, and then I guess in the last month, I've started doing a bit of threshold work, but all of the threshold stuff has been exactly where I need it to be, and not doing junk miles that just add time and add fatigue that's not necessary at this point in the year.
Show me a week. Like, what's a week look like? You mentioned zone two, zone three, intervals. Like, when do you do each, and where do you place them within the week? And a week is kind
Yeah,
of hard because it's 7 days, which is a weird number, right? So
it
does it
is.
fluctuate from one week to another?
It for me it does. I've definitely changed that up in this past winter as well. I used to be pretty strict on you have to do your week has to be how you break up your workouts, and you do that from week to week to week. And I've kind of taken my eyes off that approach and do it in like 2 or 3 day blocks with a rest day, and then 2 or 3 day blocks with a rest day, and then 2 or 3 day blocks with a rest day, and that over time that leads to you end up doing a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday block, and then a Thursday recovery day, and then a Friday, Saturday, and then a Sunday recovery day, which looks a little bit weird if you work a traditional 9 to 5,
Right.
Monday through Friday. But thankfully, being in a bike shop when like just a few days a week, and being in a bike shop, it's also a bit flexible, so it's easy to work around training. And focusing on that has led to higher quality workouts when I am doing my workouts and higher quality rest when I am doing my rest.
Hmm. Do you do kind of the same thing, Chris?
yeah, so I'm still more of like a traditional, like kind of on the week schedule. So I work a remote job in marketing on the side. So luckily, it's quite flexible. So I have outside of like meetings, so I have daily meetings at 7 a.m. I'm a morning person, so I enjoy that. My boss is based in New England, so he's 2 hours ahead. So it's 9 a.m. for him. Outside of those, in my client meetings, a lot of it's project based, so I can kind of do it when I like outside of my training. So a lot of that is in the evenings. I do work on the weekends and stuff just to get stuff done. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of on like a week basis. My big rides tend to be on the weekends. because it still is just easier to do that. And then yeah, I mean, typically like Monday is a recovery day, recovery spin. Tuesday I have intervals. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday are like intervals, some sort of like harder ride. And then Wednesday, Friday, Sunday is like endurance recovery or whatever, something along those lines. And yeah, that's kind of my what I've done for the last while. And I'd say my coaches have the mentality that there's a lot of fads in training, but we don't tend to follow those. We kind of just like stick with what's tried and true versus like, going from fad to fad, which I think is the worst possible approach because, training takes a while. If you decide after 2 weeks that your training plan's not working, it's probably because you've only spent 2 weeks doing it. So you got to give it some
Right.
time. So it's kind of better just to be. I mean, the most important thing is being consistent. So.
Hmm. Yeah, cool. I want to talk about food, and I'm going to introduce this in two different ways. One is I was um, I sprinkle in some rock climbing with my cycling. I don't ride 7 days a week. Um, and I was at the climbing gym earlier tonight, and I was talking with a dude about riding. He's a cyclist as well, and we were talking about weight. And I was like, man, if I lost 15 pounds, I could climb 2 grades harder, right? And it sure wouldn't hurt my cycling either, especially going up some of those hills at Rattlesnake. Um, and he's like, yeah, when I get into the cycling season deep, like I've got a really strict diet. It's called, what do you call it? I see it, whatever I see it, I eat it. What was that? Um, but eat anything, like if I see it, like it's food, right? I just eat anything because I am burning it and I can. And that's kind of me. Um, Flip side is I was, I don't know, I feel like the feed is kind of weird. This is Dave, and this is total editorial, but I feel like the feed's kind of weird. Like, can't you just go to like the grocery store and get some shot blocks and some goos and some banana and some fig Newtons and throw them in your back pocket and go for a bike ride? And I was saying that to, I don't know if you guys know Matt Zimmer, but he's a good friend of mine. Um, and he's like, dude, have you seen how fast people are going these days? It's all because of the food. Like nutrition is dialed to the gram to the minute. And it's things like the feed that help people do that. And I was like, whoa, dude, all right. So you're not a throw a piece of cold pizza in your back pocket guy. Like, uh, do you guys, are you that disciplined with your on bike food, whether you're training or racing? And is there a difference between training and racing? Will you stop at a convenience store and get a roller dog or a piece of pizza?
Yeah, so I would say Justin here. I would say I am 100% dialed on food. I didn't mention this earlier, but I've been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 2 years old. So diabetes has been a part of my life as long as I can remember it. And when you're living with diabetes, whether you're a cyclist, an athlete, or not, you're very focused on what's going into your body, what you're doing, and how to manage your blood sugar throughout it all. And being in tune with what you are eating is a massive, massive benefit to having good control with your diabetes life so that you can live and do whatever you want. Moving that into cycling, I've like when I first started racing, I was already paying attention to what I was eating, and the more I get into cycling, the more in the last handful of years, the higher performance or the more performance oriented I got in cycling, the more having higher focus on the nutrition benefited my performance on the bike. Kind of worded that a little bit weird, but being in tune, being really, really dialed with your food is I'd say one of the most, if not the most important thing to athletic performance all around. I will caveat that with so prior to this past year, the last 5, 6 years, I've been racing professionally on the road and transitioned to gravel midway through last year. And I would say it is a very big stigma in cycling to be like, count every calorie, make sure every single thing is exact. And I would say for certain circumstances, like certain workouts, certain races, you need to know how many carbohydrates per hour. You need to know how much you're taking in and like what the maximum you can take in is so that you can perform at the highest level possible. But if you're focusing on like counting every calorie that you're taking in throughout the day, it kind of sets you up for failure because then you end up looking at calories as calories, and then you're like, well, those Oreos have 200 calories, and that apple is 200 calories, but I want those Oreos, so I'll eat that instead. But when you look at it like that, you kind of disassociate like food and feelings and like feeling satiated, and that can lead to weird food eating discrepancies and like either weight gain, weight loss, and like a whole skewed thing. And that we can go into that at a later time, but it creates a weird dynamic in that sense. So you need to be, I would say you need to be even more dialed in this sense where you have to be able to articulate your food for workouts and recovery, and then your food for normal day-to-day eating as well at the same time. Um, and it's difficult for sure, but I'm partnered with Flow Formulas, and they're the nutrition products we're able to use with Flow are very precise, very exact, and it's exactly what you need, exactly what you don't need, and easy to digest foods on the bike, like these cycling products, cycling nutrition um, companies that make high quality stuff is a huge benefit to having high performance on the bike and then being able to recover from that and do it again the next day.
Chris, are
Yeah.
you that disciplined?
Yeah, so I guess I mean, firstly on the bike, and then I want to get into off the bike because that I definitely want to mention. But like on the bike, so I work with Carbs Fuel, and I know Flow Formulas, I've used Flow Formulas before, and brands like that, they're just like they're yes, they're harder to get. You can't just go down to your 7-Eleven and get them, but the quality of fuel that you're getting is a lot higher, and you can actually absorb more grams of carbs per hour and not have stomach issues. And that's those are kind of two things like traditionally the classic thing is like, I can't have gels, they wreck my stomach.
Yep.
But with modern gels, like in the last few years, like they're so much better, so much easier to take in. You can take in more grams of carbs, and ultimately, like, it's not just about going fast, it's also about having fun. And the number one way to ruin your ride is to bonk. Like, you will not have fun, like 100%. There's no way to have fun while you're bonked.
Correct.
And so I think it's, some people think, oh, like, I'm not in it for performance. Why do I need to, fuel? But it's like, well, if you're doing a 100-mile ride, like, or even like 70, 30, whatever, if you don't fuel, you're just gonna have a rough time, and finish kind of hangry, and that's never good for you or anyone around you. Just yeah, ask my family. Uh,
That's
so
accurate
so yeah.
statement. I ride a tandem, so let's talk
Oh,
about that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's even more
Exponential.
important, especially with a spouse or a child or anything on the tandem. You better be
Happy.
on it with your fuel.
Happy.
So yeah, that's on the bike, and I do kind of dovetailing it with off the bike. So I actually do track everything I take in, and some people assume that's like, oh, you're like trying to like focus on body composition and stuff, and actually it's exactly the opposite. One thing I've found is when I'm tracking what I'm taking in, I know I'm getting enough, and I know I'm getting exactly what I need. And for me, it's just become a habit. So it's like it's not that hard to do. There's apps now that make it like ridiculously easy. Um,
Like
and
what?
what
What do
it
you look
means.
for in an app?
So I use MyFitnessPal. That's pretty common.
Oh,
It
okay.
just if it depends what country you're in. So like if you're probably in Europe, you probably don't want to use MyFitnessPal. You probably want to use like this European apps that just have like the database of common European foods. But you can scan barcodes, and just like if you're weighing out like pasta or whatever, you can do that. And for me, what it is um it's easy to hit what you need on lower volume days. Like it's really easy. But for example, yesterday I had a 6-hour ride. So I did have lunch. So I had a massive breakfast, like 1,300 calories. And, this is all planned. I actually work with a dietitian now, and it's been game changing. And then, fueling on the bike, I have that, like, okay, that's a little more rough. It's like, here's what I plan to take in per hour. I tend to eat, a mix of solid and gels. So like carb steel gels, country drink mix, and then also like Nature's Bakery bar, stuff like that. Because a lot of the races I do, you have to stop at gas stations. You can't possibly carry all your food, so you have to get
Right.
used to taking in um, taking in different fuels. But then like when I got back, I had like 3,500 calories to eat back, and if I didn't know that, there's no way I would have hit that number. I probably would have been 1,000 to 1,500 calories under for the day, and
So
that
what? You're
stuff,
done with your ride. Who cares? You're just
yeah,
hungry,
it
or you're dead the next day.
catches up. It catches up to you. You don't
Huh.
adapt as well, and quite honestly, um, there's a whole thing about in the world tour, like, you know, why are people going so fast now? Why are people going so fast? I know you mentioned this, and I was like, yeah, I mean, obviously there's tech and stuff, fueling helps, and part of me is suspicious, like, top end. But I will say that like when I started working with a dietitian last year, I mean, it was just game changing. Like my power went up so much. I started working with him in like July, and like I feel way more. I recover faster. I'm adapting to my training, and like initially I put on a little weight, but part of that was just like glycogen stores, like being fueled properly. And it's all pretty simple at the end of the day, but for me, tracking everything perfectly means I know going into a race, say if I'm gonna do a 2 gram per kilogram carbohydrate load, so I'm gonna eat back 100% of what I burned on the day, plus 2 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of body weight for that day, and then have like a low fiber, intake that day. I know that going into that race that, okay, I've done everything I can from a fueling standpoint. I'm not questioning it. And for me, like, I like to just be like certain about something like that. I get stressed by things easily, and just like having one less thing to stress about makes a big difference. So yeah, there's definitely a slippery slope, but I'd say working with a dietitian, like he's not of the mindset like, oh, this is about body composition. He's like, this is about fueling you properly and making sure that you are well fueled, and that's the number one thing, like above all. So yeah, that's kind of my approach to it.
Huh. And if you are fueling property, body composition will take care of itself.
Yeah, exactly. And like, ultimately like you can, through fueling properly, you also can like optimize body composition if you want, but at the end of the day, like the number one thing is getting in the amount of fuel you need. And I think like beginning of last year and previous years, I was way under fueling, especially with carbohydrates off the bike. On the bike, I was really dialed. Like I've always just had a really good gut and been able to take in like a lot of fuel on the bike, which probably is my number one strength as an endurance athlete because it's just an important thing to be able to do. But off the bike, I wasn't fueling well, and it doesn't matter how much you take in on the bike if you're not fueling before and and after it it it's useless. So you
Yeah.
really have to be cognizant, and I think starting working with a dietitian made me realize, wow, I need so much more food than I thought. Like there are days where it's like this is absolutely insane. I mean, my roommate's like, how the hell are you eating this much? And it's like, well, I'm just getting back to like what I burned baseline. So yeah, it's pretty eye opening.
Huh. That's interesting. That's super interesting. Um, I don't know. Maybe I need to get a little more disciplined.
Just as
That
your
being
number one
said,
thing is you're fueling enough. They just making sure you're
yeah.
eating enough, and I
All
think
right.
that's
Fair
the
enough. Fair enough.
yeah, and it's not for everyone. It's definitely the tracking is not for everyone, and it can be annoying for some people. For me, it's just like it's fine. I don't mind it. It's just become a habit, and yeah, it does make it just means okay. I know I'm getting exactly what I need every day. So
You know, my perspective here, I'm not at the pointy end of the race. That being said, we have won the tandem division of rattlesnake the past 2 years running.
That's
it's the
more
most
wins than
important
I do.
division.
Well, for
I got
sure.
Chris and I.
Absolutely.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're both at zero. Well, you're a one.
I
Sorry,
got
two.
one. I got one. I
One.
got one.
Okay, there we go.
um, uh, but like I turned 60 this year, and I mean my super fast days are probably behind me. I want to go out there and have fun. I want to enjoy the day, but I don't want to bonk. You know what I mean? I also don't want to carry excess. I don't want to have a 20-pound barbell strapped to my waist, going up some of those hills. So, um, I don't know. What do you say to your mom? Like, mom, here's what you need to do to get ready to do this 70-mile race.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like just fueling well, like leading into the race is the number one thing. And then she's really good about fueling on the bike. Like, she rides a lot and she's used to that. And so I'd say for her, like it's pretty natural, but I'd say like the pre-race routine is a little bit different just because she doesn't do as many races as me. And I'd say the pre-race fueling routine isn't something that you can be told. You can't be said, you can't, just start working with a dietitian and they say, okay, this is exactly what you have to eat. Some of it is just trial and error, like what works for you, what do you like, what feels good. Some people like oatmeal. I love oatmeal in training. I don't use it in racing because it's really high in fiber. Like I now use you're gonna laugh at this. I use Cocoa Krispies. Best thing out there. They're like chocolate Rice Krispies, super low fiber, super high in carbs. You can find them in any grocery store in the US, Walmart, whatever. You know, Texas to Kentucky to Maine, you can find them and they don't go bad. So you can travel with them easily. And they're just a great pre-race, pre-ride fuel, and that and bagels and jam. But a lot of that is just, yeah, testing stuff out. And so, for somebody who's just wants to, have a good day, so the number one thing is just making sure you're getting enough in the day before, the days before, and the morning of, focusing on carbohydrate intake. So that means not having a like, a bowl of bacon or a plate of bacon right before the race. That's not going to help you, and you're probably not going to feel great. So just things like that.
Cocoa Krispies. I mean, Cocoa
Yeah,
Krispies would be so much
Cocoa
better than
Krispies
a
are
plate
the
of bacon.
yeah, or if you're for people who follow road racing, I think it was Remco Evenepoel who he's very superstitious, which is um I'm sure Justin will agree with me. It's kind of the classic like European road racer mindset. Like we can't eat the outside, or sorry, the inside of our bread or the outside of our bread because that's gonna make us, that's gonna make us slow and stuff like this. Remco has pre-cooked chicken before his time trials, a bunch of Belgian like pastries or bread rolls, and then like 3 cans of Fanta. And that's his breakfast, which is just like crazy. It sounds disgusting,
It does.
but I mean, I guess it's carbs and mostly carbs, and it works for him. I wouldn't recommend that, but again, some of it just is what works for you. So.
Justin, didn't you tell me when we had our your own episode that you love Fanta when you get to the finish line?
Fanta is definitely the go-to soda after a race, especially when it's warm. Something about it being orange, it tastes like the color orange, but it's fresh and it's uh, a source of life after and before hard events.
I
Um,
don't know.
and
People might be
talk,
putting Fanta in their feed bag.
I have definitely I actually had a mini Coke in my feed
Mm.
bags at Unbound this year, and I'm probably going to swap them for Fantas this year just because I want that flavor more than I want Coca-Cola,
Oh, that's
and
funny.
no caffeine this year as well.
You say you want that flavor. I think that's important. I remember this is a long time ago before both of you were born. Um, there was a dude. We lived in Ohio, and he rode for the Texas Roadhouse team. And we were riding with him through the park one day, and um, we got talking about food, and I was like, "What do you like? What do you eat?" He's like, "Little Debbie snack cake, with the frosting in the middle." I was like, "Seriously? Why?" He goes, "Because I want it. I love it, and I want it, so I know I will eat it, and I will get those calories." So your Fanta is kind of the same theory. Like you want it, so you know you're going to get those calories.
Yep, yep, yeah. Being excited about the food you're putting into your body, either before you're racing, during your race, after your race or event, is paramount.
Yep.
Because otherwise you're going to divert to foods that are easier to eat, which usually end up being much lower in nutrient density, and that is going to lead to poor performance, poor body composition, all the negative health effects of that, and that's kind of the opposite of performing well athletically.
Yeah.
E-
True that.
Even like, for what I do, like a lot of the time, which is, longer events like Unbound XL, over the course of 350 miles, you can't carry all your food. It's self-supported. You have
Right.
to stop at gas stations. And a lot of people say, what do you get at gas stations? And one of the challenges is you have about 30 seconds in the gas station to find what you need. Which when at 2 a.m. when you're in a rush, it's really hard to do. But usually what I tell people is, yeah, focus on stuff that's high in carbohydrates, but for something that long, get something that you know you like that looks good because by hour 15 in a race, anything sweet just can make you feel nauseous. Like it's not a stomach issue. It's like your brain's like, I'm tired of sweet things. Give me something that, is different. Even it could be still be sweet. It could just be like buying a, Casey's gas station cookie instead of a Cliff Bar. And that could be the change. Because at the end of the day, if you buy a bunch of things that you're not going to eat, it's useless. In the same way, like sometimes it's really nice just having plain water just to
Yeah.
just sometimes that's what you want and sometimes you want that flavor you want like a drink mix and so you have to listen to not necessarily your body but like also your mind like what do you want to take in so yeah.
Mhm. Chris, you have 30 seconds at the convenience store. Everyone behind you has 30 minutes at the convenience store, not 30 seconds. I just want to throw that out there
Yeah,
because you live in a
that's the
different
most
world.
stressful. I'm telling you, those convenience store stops are the most, they take a year off your life, every one of them. They are the most stressful part of that whole race, are running around in the convenience store trying to find what you need and being terrified that someone's going to take off before you. And oh, it's like yeah, it's kind of a nightmare, but yeah, it's part of those races. So
And then there's a line, and that 82-year-old lady is counting out in her purse like, there's a nickel, and here's two pennies. Is that the right change? And you're just crawling out of your skin.
it's more at 2 a.m. The poor attendant is half asleep and is like, am I getting robbed? Why is everyone running into our store in spandex and helmets and covered in mud? Like, what is going on? And I do wonder, like, whether they like pinch themselves after and like, am I awake or is this a dream? Because I can't imagine what that sight's like.
Yeah, that's funny. Uh, that'd be actually kind of a fun film, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh
You
man, a
just set
short
up a
film on
camera in
Yep.
those stores.
Yep.
Yeah.
3 a.m. unbound stops. Dang.
Okay, we've been going for 50 minutes here, and I definitely want to talk about equipment.
Oop.
You guys have each talked about your bikes. Justin, you're on state.
Yep.
And kind of, I mean, I'm glad you said the word carbon because in my mind, I picture state as a steel, typical diamond frame, old school type of bike. But they're building some carbon stuff, huh? Fancy dance,
Yep.
fast go,
Oh,
FAAST stuff.
FAAST stuff for sure. Yeah, so State is, I think, most well known for their fixie steel tie frames in both like the fixie track bike setup and both road frames as well. But I can't remember when they started releasing carbon road frames, but they have a carbon undefeated road frame and a carbon all road currently, and I am currently on an updated version of their carbon all road which the update is following a lot of the trends in modern day gravel racing, but after building this up, I would say is kind of outdoing them just based on build quality and everything that's going on it. And I know I am a sponsored athlete saying that, but I've also built a lot of bikes and can say from firsthand experience that this is one of the more well-rounded, if not most well-rounded, gravel race bikes I've put together, and I am absolutely thrilled to be racing on it this year. Um, yeah, so I first mounted it up with a 225 tire, 225 Maxxis Aspen ST up front, and a 2.0 Vittoria Terreno Dry in the rear.
Is this
Plenty
for
of
a gravel
clearance.
race or are you mountain biking?
So mountain bike tires seem to be the fastest gravel tires out there. So I'd say
Really?
yes to both. Yes to both for sure. Um, yeah.
Uh, 225?
Yep. 225 up front and the 2.0 in the rear. I might try a different tire combo depending on the race, but I doubt I'll be running anything narrower than a 2.0 this season. Just mountain bike XC tires have a much lower rolling resistance than even wide gravel tires, just based on casing, tire layup, CPI. thread count, and what sort of rubber's in there, but you're still getting a lot of the flat protection you get from some of these beefier gravel tires just because it's such a big volume tire. That plus you can run it at a lower pressure, so the more you're smoothing out the ride, while it might feel slower and sluggish just because you're not feeling every bump, in practice it's actually faster because you're not losing speed due to all the rigidity that you're feeling.
Okay, I had a hard time going from 33 cross tires to a 40 or a 37 even. I think I'm riding a 45 now, but
Nice, nice.
uh, like 225, I'm gonna date myself again, but like we used to ride 165 mountain bike tires
Things have
at
things have
at
come
45
full.
psi.
Oh man,
So I'm kind
that
of
sounds like a
mind
lot of
blown
fun.
right here. And are you talking a gravel race like just gravel?
Yes, yeah. So I'm pretty much talking about exclusively gravel races here. There are some, so again, tire choice is a whole rabbit hole that I think we're jumping down right now, which I'm a huge fan of because it's one of the fun parts about gravel racing is picking the right equipment for the race so that you can be in the best possible situation to perform well. But for like some of the BWR races and races that have a good split of road but also off-road, depending on how much road there is and what the technicality of the off-road is, you might pick a tire that's going to be faster for the road sections and maybe a little bit slower for the off-road sections just because of the amount of time and where you could make separation, where you could make up time, where you could attack. Like put yourself in at an advantage over your competition. You might opt for a narrower, more gravel style tire, but courses like Rattlesnake, courses like Mid South, courses like Valley of Tears, which will be my first race next weekend, first gravel race next weekend, that are have a overwhelming majority on off-road sectors and the ability to hit these off-road sectors as fast as possible is going to set you up for the best possible result on that day. And that's where we see these wider tires be the faster tire all around. Plus, sorry, I'm just kind of adding on and on here, but they're they do have a higher rolling resistance on pavement, but it's not so much of a higher rolling resistance that you're going to get dropped by someone that's riding a 45. Maybe
Huh.
if you're like going downhill at 50 miles an hour, but at that point you're all spun out anyway. So you're like just trying to go as fast as possible, arrow tucked and everything. And it's a different scenario there. So it's looking at races and trying to break it, take it apart and like see where these sectors are that you have to be really prepared for is a really
Right.
important part of this whole race prep thing that a lot of us that are competing and racing, trying to win, trying to be on the podium are looking at and making tire choice decisions based on.
Chris, are you riding that big of a tire?
I think I'm gonna do 33C two-wheelers this year.
Oh
That's my
no.
that's my
Oh
plan.
no.
No, I'm kidding.
65,
So
65 psi?
oh yeah, yeah. No, I was thinking more like 80. It
Oh,
sounds
perfect,
nicer.
perfect, perfect.
You
Dude,
gotta
you
be able to
will.
ping the tire and then it's perfect. No, I'm definitely kidding. So yeah, the new pivot vault fits. Like I raced a 2.1 Trento dry up front at Big Sugar and a 2 inch in the rear. The only difference is like if it's muddy, I will definitely downsize, and that's just
Hmm.
from experience at Unbound. If it's like clay mud, if it's normal mud, like organic mud, like you have in New England, it's fine. If it's clay mud, it sticks to your tires like peanut butter, or like like when you make a snowman, the snowball gets bigger and bigger. And if you don't have enough tire clearance, your bike will just lock up. But yeah, in general, wider is the wider the better. Honestly, full disclosure, I may be running my hardtail with drop bars for Unbound XL this year because that's such a
Nice.
long race and it's so chunky. And at 2 a.m., you do not make good line choices. And if it's muddy, you will drop everyone just because you'll be able to ride.
Huh.
So, that's kind of my mentality. So yeah, main thing, like I plan to bring two wheel sets to Mid South and Rattlesnake. One's going to have 2.1 front, 2 inch rear if it's dry, and then the other is going to have probably 45C front, 45C rear if it's if it's muddy, just as kind of like the
Hmm.
conservative choice. And I run inserts in both. My number one thing is durability. I don't care about weight, honestly. From that perspective, I'd rather have stuff that just lasts. Because in a mountain bike race, if you get dropped, yeah, and you get a flat, there's not really any drafting. You can come back, okay, unless it's Leadville. Leadville's different. But in gravel race, if you get dropped from the lead group because of a flat, you're not coming back
It's
unless you
out.
are Keegan Swenson, or Tadej Pogacar. So it's just better to have durable stuff. But quite honestly, like I think I agree with Justin. Like volume is king. Tire volume is king. And at the end of the day, tread is important, but a lot of it is volume. So I've raced Unbound XL twice or once on slicks. I raced Gravel Worlds Long Voyage on slicks last year, and they're just wide like 47C. And this year I might go even wider with slicks. And sure, like some people are like, oh, do you not have enough grip? And it's like in a race like that, it's not there's not so much technical cornering. It's more just really chunky, and those tires roll fast. They have really nice thick tread casing, so they're pretty durable. And the tire volume, it's that contact patch. That's what's going to give you the grip. At the end of the day, like you can have really chunky, you know, you know, moto tires, but if they don't dig into the ground, they're not providing any more grip than a slick tire is. So if it's hard pack gravel, or even if it's just like a little bit loose, if they're not digging in that far, it makes no difference. So that's something I've learned over the past few years, and I would just say like the last thing is gravel tires are gravel tire choice is probably way more important than mountain bike tire choice. I do both. I race both, and I typically race the same mountain bike tires for every race. So I race the Vittoria um, Mezcal in 2.4, the new race casing, super grippy, rolls really fast, got a great centerline tread, but has plenty of grip. Sometimes I race the peyote even faster. So like for something like Leadville, if it's muddy, I'll race their Barzo just for mud clearance. But I'm never like changing tire size really for a mountain bike. Some people might mud races, but pretty much 2.4 for every race. Just
Hmm.
that's just the standard, nice big volume. Um, but whereas gravel, there's a lot of factors to consider. So.
Huh, that's super interesting. Justin, what kind of tires you running?
Uh, Mountain bike tires. It's mostly Maxxis. I might have a handful of Vittorias to throw on the rear, until a narrower Aspen ST, which I've heard rumored many times about, comes out. The 225 in the rear is close. It's really close to the frame, and
Hmm.
even on a dry course, I don't really want to ruin a bike at the first race, so
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be dropping down a size.
Huh.
But
I'll
it'll
show you
be
a trick.
I've actually got the razors right here
No,
on my
no, there's another thing.
ready
You
to
do the
go.
little scraper on the seat stays, and if
Mhm.
there is a rock that gets stuck on the tire, it'll flick it off before it hits the frame.
Ooh, I do like that. I do
Yeah,
like that.
it's not a kosher, it's not a very kosher fix. But yeah, but
If it works, I'm
if
down for
for
anything
dry
that
conditions
works.
it works. If it's muddy, then yeah, the only option is to downsize.
Yeah,
Hmm.
no, fair enough. But yeah, it'll be Maxis at every opportunity, and I just had really good luck running their stuff. I broke a wheel at Unbound last year and didn't flat the tire, so don't know how that happened. And that seems like, well, as bad luck as that was for breaking a wheel, that's what you get when you hit a brick at 30 miles an hour. And the fact that the tire still got me to the finish that's enough for me to want to run Maxis for until someone's paying me big bucks.
Hmm. How much tread?
That's going to depend on course and technicality. I will probably opt for the lightest style tread at pretty much every opportunity, especially running a bigger volume tire. You don't really have to worry about it quite as much. Plus, I'm running XC tires. There's going to be more than enough tread. Even on Aspen STs or Aspens, there's more tread than any gravel tire out there. So I think that's kind of a non-issue when we're talking about this step into the mountain bike XC tire world.
Huh, that's super interesting. When gravel first started becoming a thing, my first Trans Iowa, first two Trans Iowas, I did on a mountain bike, like gravel. We did on mountain bikes, so it's kind of interesting that
Yeah, we're
you're
essentially
kind
on
of coming
old.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're essentially on old mountain bikes from the '90s right now.
it seems like it with drop bars.
The
Yep,
drop bar
it is.
hardtail, I'm telling you, it's
Yep.
it's fast. I've done road group rides on my it currently has flat bars, but like Vittoria, I have Vittoria Mezcals on it, and they make the same tire in the gravel version. But even with a
Yep. hmm
225, 24, it's fast, and honestly, it's comfy, plenty of tire clearance. The only challenge with hardtails is putting drop bars is it does increase your reach, so there are some challenges with that. You have to think about like what stem you're using and everything. But yeah, I mean, I just say like there's obviously suspension forks in gravel, but if you have a really big tire, you could use a suspension fork, but also you can run low enough pressure that you don't need a suspension fork to make it a smooth, fast ride.
Right. This is super fun. Like, I feel like you could almost have like a whole podcast on tires.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
100%. I feel like there are a few out there that try
there
to
Probably
do
like
it.
a
probably are.
hundred
There probably
episodes.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably are. And you know what? Like, it's all, I don't know. I mean, I- it kind of isn't subjective, is it? I mean,
No.
there's physics. It's physics.
Yep. Yep. And there's actual test data on this too. Like there's a whole website, Bicycle Rolling Resistance, dedicated to part of this whole conversation. And then yeah, there's so many facets to it, and there's also so much performance to either gain or lose by what tire tread, tire size, and if you're going to flat or not.
I I will say the one thing about the personal preference is like I'm sponsored by Vittoria, but the one thing that happens, especially in gravel, is somebody uses a tire and they have really good luck in one race and they're like, this tire is just
Yeah,
invincible. And and
yeah,
then they may not know that another person flatted 4 times with that tire. And it sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's line choice. Like a lot of it is line choice.
Yep, for sure.
But at
And
the end of the day,
like,
like, yeah, modern tires are, if you're buying a high-end modern tire, they're good. I mean, obviously, if you're buying a really, really light race casing tire, it's not meant to do 200 miles of unbound. But if you're buying a durable tire, they're all really good, and a lot of it is just doing your research and also choosing your tire pressure, inserts or not, just making sure that you have all that dialed so that you're you know minimizing your likelihood of flatting and then maximizing the performance gains in terms of rolling resistance and all that. So
I'm sure you guys are avid listeners of the show. But a couple episodes ago, I had John Howard on. Do you know that name?
yep, yep.
Um, he and you guys would have an interesting conversation about tires because, like, he and I grew up on 18 millimeter wide, 125 psi bald Avocet tires, and I just shudder to think, like, man, I can't even believe we rode those things. It was like riding a rim, you
Yep.
know?
And yeah, no cornering grip at
it
all.
Yeah,
makes the
nothing.
ride
We're
less
so
fun.
What's that?
Makes the ride less fun as well. And that's ultimately
I,
the number one thing.
I will say, and I would say this to somebody learning to mountain bike because it's kind of the same idea. Um, Learning to ride on a tire like that, on a bike like that, you learn how to pick your line. You learn how to ride lightly. Like
Yep.
I used to tell people on mountain biking, like, don't start with a full suspension mountain bike. Start with a fully rigid mountain bike and learn how to ride on that because you learn how to the subtleness of the ride, and you begin to develop like a good line. And if you do hit a brick at 30 miles an hour, it may smash your wheel, but maybe you didn't go down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Coming
Yeah,
down Leadville, we used to
exactly.
D and I have done Leadville 4 times on tandem, and coming down from Columbine, like it's a double track, and there's people coming up, and they're walking their bikes uphill, and we're coming downhill on the right side of the road, and you really didn't get to pick our line, and you just hit brick-sized rocks, and you had to be able to handle that.
Yep.
So knowing how to do that, I think, is important. And tire choice is one of those things that, anyway, that was a rant. I don't even know the point of that rant. But
Like
anyway,
learn to ride your bike.
yes,
That's
learn to
the
ride your
point
bike.
of it.
Spend a lot of
Yeah.
time riding your bike. And don't rely
Yep.
on the technology to make riding your bike easy. Learn
Yep.
how to ride your bike.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys, we've been going on for an hour plus. I will look forward to seeing you at Rattlesnake Gravel Grind. I'm going to look forward to meeting your mom, Chris. Justin, when we go to Spain, we'll meet your mom.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, cool. And maybe we'll see you in Austin right
Yeah.
before,
Right.
yeah, right
Right
before
before.
Rattlesnake.
Yeah. And
Sounds
I'll see
good.
you at in Colorado Springs after Rattlesnake. So
And then I'll see you in Colorado Springs right after Rattlesnake. Yeah. Anyway, looking forward to seeing you guys. I appreciate you coming on, making time, and we'll see who gets to drape a rattlesnake around their neck.
Like the sounds of that.
yeah, well, thanks for having us on.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, Dave. We'll see you soon.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Those two are such great guys, and I appreciate their time to hop on a call. I've certainly enjoyed getting to know them through this podcast. I've found that a podcast, kind of similar to a camera, can take you so much deeper into the sport as you have an excuse to talk to and get to know cool guys like these two. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. And if you did, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Of course, I would love it if you would rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support the show financially, feel free to drop some coins in the cup at buymeacoffee.com. Just look for Bike Talk with Dave. I got to thank Dave, Doug, Julie, Clint at Boone Cycles, Steve, Casey, and Kate. And if you want to support this show financially, feel free to drop some coins in the cup at buymeacoffee.com. Just look for Bike Talk with Dave. I got to thank Dave, Doug, Julie, Clint at Boone Cycles, Steve, Casey, and Kate for buying me a coffee. It really helps with the ongoing expenses that make it possible to record and host this show. I really appreciate it. And one more thing, be sure to give this show a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, you can find and stream every episode at biketalk.bike. Now, I hope you have a great week, keep riding, and remember that nothing compares with the simple pleasure of riding a bicycle.